Not to make this.
All right, I think we're ready to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Heater-Druitt. I am the Development Program Manager for the Residential Tax Incentive Program. This is the annual Housing Council meeting for the City of Columbus's Residential Tax Incentive and CRA program. To my right, Edward Donis Madison. He is our point person on downtown and commercial abatements. So if you have any questions on those projects, he is the one who can field those kinds of questions. In the audience as well, we have Aaron Prosser, Deputy Director for Housing Strategies, and you have the rest of the Res Tax team, Talisa Monaghan, David Parrish, Heidi Ferguson, and Kimberly Brugman. So first voting action is to open the meeting. As a reminder, at this moment, Matthew Hansen is not a member of the board. That'll be our next voting action. So amongst everyone else, I'm calling a vote to open the meeting.
So moved. Second.
Deborah first, Lois second, and all hands to open. Unanimous. So I'm going to go over the agenda quickly. First are the voting actions. One, we already opened the meeting, but next we will handle the Housing Council appointees. We will then go into our visual inspections, which is the key annual item we need to get done today. And then following that, we're going to go into the City of Columbus's overall housing strategy and how the CRA and Res Tax program fits into it. And then I'll talk about some program outcomes data, both on the affordability side and the investment side, and what we're seeing in the market. Next voting action is to vote on Housing Council appointees. So to give a little bit of background and looking at slide 3, Robert Williams and Maud Hill are both mayoral appointees. Jessica Klinger and Lois Carson are city council appointees. Janice K. Shanklin is a development commission appointee. And the prospective appointees by the Housing Council itself are Deborah Diggs and Matthew Hansen. So Matthew would be an appointee by this body itself, and then would be a full-fledged member. So I'm calling, well, first, does anyone have any questions about what I just laid out? Okay. Okay. I would like to call a first and a second to vote on Matthew Hansen and Deborah Diggs' appointment.
Motion that we accept Matthew and Deborah to the council.
Lois first,
Second.
Jessica second, and all hands in favor of voting on both appointees?
Are we allowed to vote for her? I vote for him.
Unanimous for both? Unanimous for both. Thank you.
You didn't vote for me, Matthew.
Welcome, Matthew. So this is the current slate of Housing Council appointments. I just went through the roster. Welcome Matthew and Deborah as of a few moments ago. One thing I'll note too is that it's actually really important. We have a truly full roster now, 7 members. For a while, there were some members we were not able to fill, and so this is the largest board I have managed so far. I'm really happy about that. Next is the vote on inspections. So as I mentioned, every year, the housing tech team will go out in January and February to do an exterior inspection of all properties that have a current abatement on it through this program. So for properties that have had their abatement expire, we do not monitor those anymore. But for the ones that do, we want to make sure under Ohio Revised Code rules that these properties are kept in good shape, both in terms of cosmetics, but also in terms of safety. And so we inspect all sorts of properties, homeownership properties, rental properties, larger developments, ancillary structures like garages can also benefit from the abatement, so we do look at those as well. This year, the housing tech team investigated 2,768 properties. I want to give special kudos to Tyrone Taylor and Caleb Montgomery in the housing division. With their leadership, we have the most expansive list yet and the most detailed list yet. Their partnership was incredible for getting this done on time, and the quality of the data was better than it's ever been. So I provided to this group, and I'll show that spreadsheet in a moment, but I want to call out a couple examples of what these physical inspections can entail. This is a random sampling of 3 of them that I thought would be useful for showing the breadth of what the team is looking at. I'm not choosing these 3 for any other particular reason. On the more traditional single-family side, 124 to 128 Dakota Avenue, this is a repeat finding. And when the tech team first gave me this photo, I was actually unsure what the finding was. But then upon working with that tech more, I learned those windows are not real windows. They are boards that have been painted to be windows, which just shows the detail that they're going into. They're not just doing a quick drive-by. They really inspect to see what's really going on with the property. So that's one example. In another example, 788 Rookhouse Lane, this is in the Grandview Yard development. It's a brand new build. This one is more of a safety issue. There are wooden boards. It's hard to see in the picture, but I tried to circle it. Wooden boards, concrete forms they're called, that have not been removed. It can be a safety issue, so we just want to get those removed. 245 Deschler Avenue. This is another repeat finding, but it's one that I was already aware of would be a repeat finding. This is a historic structure in the south side of Columbus. And so because it is a historic structure, there's more that goes into that rehab work than just fixing it. It has to go through other channels to make sure that the property is being maintained in its historic character. So I worked with the property owner last year. They have a bid to do the work. It's going to take longer because it's historic property. It is technically a finding, but I already know they're doing the work they need to do. I'll pull up here the actual spreadsheet. It is extensive. There are about 70 findings this year. Let me zoom out a little bit. So I'll scroll through this list slowly in case anyone has a question about any one of these properties. And pending any discussion you need to have on any of the properties, I would then move for a vote, but let me scroll through them quickly. And by the way, is this large enough on the screen for everyone to view?
Was over here to make it the same size.
Oh, I can move it. I can move it back. Here we
I don't
go.
know, Matthew, are you okay with it being bigger?
Yeah, that's fine. Here we go.
I guess with it being bigger though, you can't see the whole thing.
There we go. That way you can see the issues column.
Thank you, yeah.
And that's the end of the list. Does anyone have any questions about any of the particular properties or our overall process? I should note too, following the vote, what will happen is that we in the administration will issue letters to these property owners, noting that we did find a finding and that they will need to remedy that issue in order to stay compliant. It is within our right to revoke the abatement. That is not our goal. We do want to help the property owner get the property in good condition first. And so first, try to help, keep contact. If there is a repeat finding, if there's continual net negligence, we do reserve the right to revoke an abatement. I'm sorry, Robert?
So just, and I apologize for so many questions, but this is my first meeting, just trying to get an understanding of the process. Is there like a metric or things that the inspectors are specifically looking for? It seems like, you know, safety and health are key. I'm seeing a lot of peeling of paint, so I'm assuming you guys are trying to make sure that you're adjusting for lead and things of that nature. So is there like a metric so that we can have a better understanding of what to expect on these reviews and what's important to you all when you all are going out to do these inspections and what's most important? Because like someone previously asked, okay, these aren't code violations, right? So just trying to get a better understanding of the reason and the metric you guys are using to put properties on your list.
Yes, so I'm going to start backwards and work my way to the front. So you're right, these are not technically code violations. Code violations are a higher level of finding than what Ohio Revised Code requires for this program. If it had been if it had just been code violations, the tech team would not have had need to go out and do this physical inspection. So we do care about the aesthetics, we do care about safety. And then going back to the front of your question about what we're looking for, I'm happy to provide that to you later. I don't have that at my fingertips. We don't have a prescriptive list of things we are looking for, more broad categories, things that affect safety, things that affect the physical character of the property, signs of neglect. And the tech team, with their expertise, takes those broad categories and reports back what they find. I don't accept every single one. I think the initial list was about 85, and I whittled it down to about 70. Things that were, say, a missing board out of a back fence. Is that deterioration? It is. Is it worth revoking the abatement entirely over that? No. So I do try to whittle this down a little bit to make sure these are things that should be remedied.
Thank you.
Jeremy, can I say something? So, Robert, welcome to the board, and it may be helpful, one of the things that helped me when I first got on the Housing Council a little while back, is that we had like an orientation with Rita explaining what our role was. And so to help better understand, like, you know, it's not a code violation and what the abatement and how it's impacted. So I don't know, Robert said this is his first meeting and it can be confusing. So maybe even, I don't know if you have like something you can post or video that you can make to send out to us to even refresh some of our memories about why we sit at this table and what those lists and why you receive those.
Yeah.
Because those abatements are very controversial in some instances. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as we sit here.
Yeah, your point is very well taken. Let's do that next year. And I'm very excited to have a full board with a wide range of expertise. I want to make sure that all of your expertise are being utilized in the best way. So your point taken, thank you.
You say you issue letters to them. What's the time frame that they're giving to make these repairs?
Typically 6 months. In the past, we've given them until about October to report back to us. Based on past experience, a lot of homeowners would get back to me pretty quickly after getting the letter. Some will trickle in thereafter. But in the letter, we state a 6-month timeline from the date of issuance of that letter.
And Jeremy, when there is an actual code violation that's issued on a property, how does the housing council get notified? Does it get involved at all, or does it just go through the normal code review process?
The normal code review process, right now, we really rely on the housing tech team to inform us of these physical deteriorations. We do use code violations for other purposes. So for example, when we create or amend a CRA, under Ohio Revised Code, we were required to perform a housing study to take a view of what the housing conditions are like in that particular area. That's one area where we do rely on code violations to show how this program can help bring a community up and lift a community up and make sure that we're providing housing everywhere and making sure that we're providing incentives to help make that happen.
Can you talk a little bit about, are there any resources that are options for individuals, like with the paint, the peeling paint, lead paint removal, things like that, replacing the handrails, broken?
Yeah, so the Division of Housing offers many programs to help homeowners. There is a lead abatement program. There's ADDIE to help with financing. And we do include links and contact information in the letters to help direct people for specific issues they may have.
We see people in the community not on the list.
Any more questions on the inspections? Hearing none, I will call for a vote to accept the inspections and authorize the administration to issue these finding letters. Asking for a first and a second.
I, Deborah Diggs, so move.
Deborah first,
Second?
Matthew second. A vote to accept? Unanimous? Thank you. So this concludes the formal voting actions of this body today. Now I'm going to go into more programmatic topics, and if you have any questions, please do jump in. As a reminder, and then for the members who are new to this, the City of Columbus incorporated some affordability requirements into the program back in 2018. Initially, it focused on multifamily, and we divided the affordability requirement based on numerous economic factors. So the higher developed areas, think Short North and similar, those were designated market ready, and they have the highest affordability requirements. The middle tier, ready for revitalization, there are some affordability requirements, but they start to diminish. The ready for opportunity, those are the areas that need the most investment, and so we want to get the program itself out of the way a little bit and try to direct as much money there as we can. Again, so back in 2018, that policy, it was 10% of units rented at or below 80% AMI and 10% rented at or below 100% AMI if you were in those market ready or ready for revitalization areas. Ready for opportunity, the lower one was exempted from this. There are other requirements as well, but that was the big one. In 2022, Council updated those requirements to address our changing communities and how we need to right-size our affordability requirements to address our housing issues. And so we kept those 3 tiers, but we changed the requirements within them. So for the rental product, we dropped those AMI categories by 20 points each. So now it's 10% of units at or below 60% AMI and 10% at or below 80% AMI. We added an extra option if people wanted to provide more units, but at a higher price point. So that's 30% of units at or below 80% AMI. So we instituted a deeper affordability option, which is that former one, or a wider affordability option, which is that latter one I just outlined. We also introduced a requirement for affordable home ownership in the market ready and ready for revitalization tiers. So if you are a homeowner of a single family home, a condo, part of a duplex. That family needs to be below 120% of AMI in order to benefit from the abatement, and their housing expenses cannot exceed 35%. We also introduced some affordability requirements to Ready for Opportunity, that lower tier. So now for the rental product, it's 10% at 80 AMI and 10% at or below 100% AMI. So the requirements are not as stringent for Ready for Opportunity, but we started to roll those in. Ready for Opportunity is also exempt from that homeownership affordable requirement. We also updated the fee in lieu option. This is an option for rental products where a project sponsor can opt to pay a fee in lieu of providing that affordable unit. So that was one other thing that was changed in the 2022 policy. That option remained, but the cost of doing that went up. And that is limited to rental product that's not eligible for the homeownership product. I'm going to talk more about the outcomes of this in the very last slide, where I talk about how many units we're seeing being brought online in these various AMI categories. But I want to open discussion. Do you have any questions about this transition and these requirements that I've laid out? Robert?
If you haven't already, can you send this electronically?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if this is working. If someone pays the fee in lieu of the affordability, where do those funds go?
Good question. So in the 2018 policy, the one that is being phased out, the project sponsor would pay that to a community development corporation of their choice. Think Franklinton Rising, Healthy Homes, those folks, or I should say Habitat for Humanity. For the 2022 policy, that fee is paid directly to the city to be put into a fund to support affordable housing initiatives. Some funds have come in already. None of that money has been spent.
What type of affordable housing initiatives do you know?
That is being worked on. We've had a working group to look at what sorts of opportunities there might be to leverage those dollars. No firm decisions have been made yet.
Okay.
Now, who is on the working group and what their findings are?
Absolutely. I'd love to update the group, this board on the outcomes of that.
And do you know if and when, because you said 2018 to 2022, they will be looking at revising this or reviewing it again?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So this program is required under our legislation to be reviewed every 3 years. That next triennial review is due by July 31 of this year. We also reserve the right to not change anything. So we are in discussions now about what we would change, if anything. But a decision on that would certainly be made prior to July 31 if any changes were made at all.
Will we be providing any updates? I mean, with housing costs, the housing costs, I mean, soaring, just be interested to know the numbers of unsheltered individuals and rent costs and how all this is impacting.
Yeah, if you have any initial feedback, I'm happy to talk with you after the meeting, right now, after the meeting, or at another time to schedule with you. We'd love some feedback as we go into this next triennial review.
I feel like that would be an important part, and if any others also, maybe if we could even talk about it and maybe just give you a collective feedback.
Absolutely. Any more questions on this topic? And then again, we will talk about outcomes later.
Okay.
All right, moving on. So I'm going to give some legislation updates. So one very big update that we legislated in December of 2023, it went into effect January of 2024, is our geographic expansion. For members of this board that are returning, you may remember we had about 30 different CRAs scattered throughout the city. And over time, what the city found was that we wanted to provide some predictability to the housing market and not create CRAs here, there, and again, there, and here. We wanted to expand the tool as widely as we possibly could and reduce administration. It takes a lot on the state compliance side, it takes a lot on the approval side to navigate all these various CRAs we had established. So what we did was we dissolved almost all of those prior individual CRAs and replaced it with the Columbus Housing CRA. And in addition, spread that Columbus Housing CRA as widely as we possibly could to about 85% of city parcels. We kept that three-tiered system for the affordability, but now it's based on your census tract, not an individual CRA. A couple CRAs remained, the legacy ones in particular. Those are ones that either have the pre-1994 distinction, which means they have a limited number of amendments before they expire, so they're hard to amend, or there's a contractual obligation where we cannot amend it. That was relevant for the Easton CRA. So what you'll see is anything in yellow is a ready for opportunity census tract. Anything in blue is a ready for revitalization census tract, and the green is market ready. Those legacy CRAs, the ones that cannot be amended, those are in the hashed gray lines. You see that downtown, you see that up near Easton. And then the pure gray, look at Rickenbacker in the very far south as one example, or Polaris at the very north. Those are areas we intentionally exempted from the expansion. When there is an active TIF, tax increment financing deal, or another economic development tool that would clash with the CRA, we don't want these tools to clash with each other. So we were very methodically carved certain things out where we had to carve them out to make this project work. This has been very successful. We provided way more certainty to the housing market. We expanded this tool as widely as we possibly could. It reduced the need to amend or create CRAs all the time. And it's made things easier on the compliance side. Does anyone have any questions about the expansion?
How often are the designations reviewed? Is that done with the triennial?
It's done with a triennial review. So we have not updated those tiers. We declined to update those tiers in 2022, but this would be bundled in with that triennial review. Any other questions on this? So here's a chart of legislation that occurred in and around 2024. So I mentioned the Columbus Housing CRA went into effect January 10 of 2024. We had a follow-up ordinance that June for some legal cleanup. Then we had a single-family pilot program legislated in June as well. Zone In went into effect August of 28. That's where City Council rezoned parcels along our major transit corridors. And part of this is a height bonus program, where if a project sponsor opts to include the affordable units on site, they can be granted extra height for their building. So it's a way to encourage density, but then also encourage affordability too. We've not yet had a project go through this process yet, but maybe next year I'll have one to share with you. Then very last ordinance that went into effect January, legal cleanup for the single-family pilot. And just to update you on what that single-family pilot actually is. If you recall, for the multifamily product, at least 20% of the units need to be rented to affordable renters. We're trying to right-size that with the homeownership product too. The initial legislation back in 2022, it did not account for large-scale owner-occupied structures that are being produced all at once. We wanted to right-size that affordability requirement to better reflect what we were expecting and requiring people on the multifamily side. So for projects that are at least 100 or more owner-occupied structures, at our discretion, they can move forward by providing 30% of those units at or below 120% AMI. It's a way to encourage affordable homeownership, but then also try to get as many dwellings online at any price point that we can. We've only offered one waiver so far. No applications have been approved yet, but I'm happy to provide program outcomes at the next meeting or perhaps even sooner than that. Does anyone have any questions about the legislative activity that occurred in and around 2024? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. So here's the program outcomes data. I mentioned at the top of the meeting that the housing tech team inspected over 2,700 properties. That is a lot, but I wanted to put this in context of the city as a whole. Right now, about 1.5% of city parcels are abated through this program. And I want to make clear too, The abatement is not wiping away the existing property tax bill. For new build, there was no prior taxable value apart from the land, so that ground-up structure for new build is property tax abated, land value taxation remains. For rehabilitation, remodeling, conversion projects, the existing tax bill remains, but the increase in property taxes that would have otherwise occurred due to that investment, it's that slice that's abated for 15 years at 100%. So in total, 1.5% of city parcels are benefiting from this program currently. Combined, the appraised value is about 11.8 billion. Abatement value is about 97 million. Then as far as the monitored units, we're currently monitoring 220 units at or below 60% AMI, 518 units at or below 80% AMI, and 221 units at or below 100% AMI. At the time of year-end '24, we did not yet have a homeownership product approved yet under that 120% AMI limit. We just approved our first one today. So next year, I'll have some better data for you on how the homeownership requirement is working, but we did approve our very first one today. Now, this program does not only bring affordability by way of unit production and not just by way of the amounts we are monitoring, but this program also supports projects that are 100% affordable. As an example, LIHTC or low-income housing tax credit projects are 100% affordable. Those rents on the units vary between 30% and 80% AMI. They have to average to 60% in the project. And so we do count those too. They matter. The program helps to support 100% affordable projects. And so at year-end 2024, we had approved 629 LIHTC units. And then going back to that fee in lieu conversation, so far 155 units have gone down that route, generating a total of about 1.1 million in the fee. Any questions on these outcomes?
So the 1.1 million, is that from 1 year, or was that over 2 years? If I was following
Cumulative.
that.
Thank you for
since
that
the beginning.
clarification. So this data is the entire program up until December 31 of 2024. So
How
when
many years was that?
so starting in 2018, that's when the legislation, the first round of affordability requirements went into effect. The first project to go into contract was 2019. So legislatively, 7 years, programmatically, about 6.
So it's not very much per year that you're getting fee in lieu of.
Right. If you were to divide this out by 6 or 7 years, that would be about on average per year. One thing that has brought this number up is that increased cost. So to give you an example, in the 2018 policy, that cost was $5,000 per affordable unit. That was paid to an individual CDC. That was only for the Ready for Revitalization tier. That's the only one it was offered for. In the 2022 rules, we have upped those amounts. So for Market Ready, that's $32,000 plus an inflation adjustment every single year. That number is about $38,000 now. For Ready for Revitalization, it started with $16,000. With the inflation adjustment, it's about $17,500. Ready for Opportunity, because that was brand new to the affordability component of this program, started with that original $5,000 figure. Now it's about $5,800 with the various inflation adjustments. Any questions on the program outcomes? All right. With that, I will call, well, first, are there any other questions whatsoever about what we just discussed or looking into next year?
Just providing the follow-up orientation for refresher and for the newer members to make sure that as we step and sit into these chairs, we know what the roles and responsibilities are, the expectations, those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that for a moment. So this board must meet within the month of March. So looking backwards from that, would everyone like a touch base, say, January when the new year hits? Or would you like a different time frame for a refresher?
Is everybody okay with January? I mean, I think earlier would probably be too soon, and January would be after all the holiday rush and things like that. What do you?
Sounds good.
Yeah, well, let's plan for January. All right, I'll make a note of that, and we'll make that happen. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds like the CRA may be either amended or stay the same in July. So folks might just want to know maybe when that happens, like what, if any changes happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this board will meet, what, just once a year?
Yes, this board is required to meet once per year within the month of March. We can always meet more than that if there's a desire to do that. We can also have a WebEx or a more general email check-in, but yeah, the actual requirement is once per year
Okay.
in March. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call for a motion to end the meeting, asking for a first and for a second.
Deborah Diggs, so moved.
Deborah first,
Second.
Robert second. All in favor of adjourning?
All right.
Unanimous. Thank you all.
So Mike's right now.